Blocking with shadows is one of the most luxurious aspects in cinema that only few directors can afford creatively. It is a tool to transmit intentions, emotions, states of mind, and everything in between and beyond visually. Redbeard, directed by Akira Kurosawa, remains one of the finest examples to study the implementation of shadows in visual storytelling. The story takes place inside a very humble hospital dedicated only to treat the poor people. And by the poor people, I mean the lost, miserable, and broken peasants of the surrounding area, who most of them are gone either physically or mentally. This scene we are studying has a male character, an egoistic doctor who has just joined this creepy place and he despises it beyond belief. Suddenly, the doctor got joined by this beautiful lady, but don't let appearances fool you. She is mentally unstable, deranged, clinically insane. She is also a patient in this hospital. This lady is dangerous. She hunts men, especially the sexually deprived ones, seduces them, and then kills them by stabbing their necks.
その店の者を3人殺したんです。それも色仕掛けて男の銃を奪っといてやるんです。男がのぼせ上がって無抵抗な状態になった時かんざしでぐさってやったんだそうです。
Now, let us go back to the main scene. In order to block it with shadows, Kurosawa split the screen to 4 tiers. The main tier represents the hospital. This tier is also equally split in half, forming 2 frames, dividing 2 states of mind. Each single frame represents the character in it and represents the relation between that same character with this hospital. A tier, properly lit and clean, represents the brightness, the potential, and the fresh record of this newly joined doctor. Also, even if he still doesn't know it yet, but the hospital to him will be something like a blank page, awaiting his touch and contribution. In contrast, the second tier is shadowed and dim, representing the dark and uncharted psyche of this female character. It also has this texture that resembles a prison cell, embodying the notion that this lady, due to her mental illness, is not a guest in this hospital, she is imprisoned in it.
自費で出したんです。その娘ってのは特別な病人でしてね、あの建物全体が牢作りになってるんです。お杉が鍵を持っていて家の中へは誰も入れないし、娘も一人では決して外へ出しません。
The lady now plays a game of seduction, of temptation, of attraction. She gets on her knees, projecting weakness, innocence, submission. A broken soul needs to be joined, embraced, understood, and be pitied.
お願いです。私を助けてください。私、本当は気違いなんかじゃないんです。
Now, let us pay close attention, because this is the beautiful part. Currently, both characters are physically inside the hospital. However, both their states of mind technically are elsewhere. Their shadows are telling us this. The newly joined doctor at this point, through the story, dreams of leaving this deranged, miserable hospital and moves to a better place where he will live with the fancy and treat only the wealthy families. That's why his own shadow is not included with him in his own tire. This doctor may be inside this hospital, but his mind is elsewhere. This bottle of sake, a Japanese alcoholic drink, a symbol of escapism and numbing the pain, is also included with the shadow in its own frame, suggesting that the doctor's mind is living or craving a delusional reality. Whatever he is wishing for is intoxicated by incorrect fantasy and pure escapism. The shadow of the mentally disordered female patient is also in its own frame. It is not included with her. She may be imprisoned in this hospital, but her mind is loose elsewhere. She is here with us, but her psyche is in another dimension beyond our comprehension. Her shadow is within a black frame, a door to an obscure space, a gate suppressing an uncharted, unpleasant nothingness. The line between the two frames fades at one point, suggesting that whatever darkness this lady mentally lives in has found its way into this hospital. The darkness has absorbed her and her world, and if you aren't careful or get too close, it will absorb you too.
私の話を聞いて。あなたはここへ新しく来たお医者様でしょ。お杉から聞いたわ。ここのネズミ色の筒で起きたお医者様はダメ。私の話を真面目に聞いてはくれないのよ。真面目に聞いてくださるわね。
The frame that represents a wishful dream or a better alternative to this hospital is shrinking. It doesn't occupy much space anymore, and it soon will disappear as the doctor is now mentally, physically, and sexually invested. His shadow has joined him in his frame. His mind doesn't wander away no more. His mind has been captivated. The lady's game of seducing and enchanting her prey has worked. The doctor falls to her level. The screen now has only 3 frames left. The frame representing the doctor's dream and attachment to an outside better world has been erased. He is enchanted by the lady. He wants to be with her now, admire her, get to know her. He doesn't dream of leaving this place anymore. You can notice now that the framing is equal no more. Her frame now contains 2 tires of the screen, while the doctor's frame left only with 1, meaning that the lady's evil charm and sly seduction is taking over the scene, dominating the doctor's thinking and senses. In other words, dominating him and his world, and winning in that.
私確かに店の者を殺したわ。でもそれには深いわけがあるのよ。私子供の時男の人にひどいことされたんです。でもこんな話とっても女の口から言えません。
私は医者だよ。恥ずかしがることはない。
His frame, his world, his reasoning and sanity, even himself, gets more and more crushed and pressed by everything this lady represents. all while her dark realm is expanding and spreading due to the success of this solid game of seduction and luring. The edge of the mainframe at this moment embodies the sheer psychological distance between the two point of views, between the two very different black and white states of mind. There is even a cage separating the handsome and the beast. To be this dark and deranged, you must be locked for a very, very long time, physically and mentally, or even both. And by the way, Kurosawa uses this same blocking many times in this film to show us the psychological distance between two characters, between two states of mind. Now that stick holding the candle, plus the fire near his face, signs the subtext of a danger beyond. Once you pass this point, things are going to be unpleasant. Notice how the lady occupies both her main frame as well as the frame of her shadow, meaning that she is present in our world but has access to that deranged realm of hers, while the doctor is in the final crossroad between sanity and insanity, between light and darkness, between liberty and getting trapped. The visual image is still split between these two entities, separating two ways of thinking, separating two mentalities. Once the doctor covers this line, it means that the line separating them, separating their ways of thinking, is blurred, is erased. Both their entities will mix with each other, as if they will become in the same page, believing in the same things. And because the doctor is the one being dominated in this situation, it is him who will adopt and consume the lady's lies, mindset, and her way of thinking and processing. He will start to believe what the lady believes in. He will sink in her mentality.
私9つの時、年寄りの番頭にいたずらをされたんです。そしてもしこのことを人に言ったら殺してしまうって脅かされたんです。その番頭は
And that is the last step closer that permits the blocking to finally hit the visual image of the candle fire piercing the doctor's neck, foreshadowing the notion that the doctor is heading towards the ugly outcome as the rest of the men who fell into her hands.
かんざしてぐさってやったんだそうです。
間もなくお金を使い込んで店を出されました。でもそれまでに幾度も私をおもちゃにして、その度に人に言ったら殺してしまうって脅かしました。それからいいえ、私もうとても言えません。
言うな。何もかも言ってごらん。
This is the moment the doctor fell into her trap. He crossed the final and thin warning line separating sanity and insanity. We can see his shadow is now trapped in her prison, like a naive bird getting lured a little by little, so ignorant about the clearly visible dangers surrounding him, until he finally crosses the irreversible line and falls into the inescapable trap. Normally, this should be the ending point, like a cut to black. The doctor falls into her trap, he lost, he should be dead by now. The end, moving to the next scene. However, Kurosawa didn't do that, not yet at least. Kurosawa stretched this scene even more, affecting the flow of the blocking, dodging the opportunity to end this scene with both characters' shadows disappearing inside a cage infected by a deranged realm and absorbed by sheer darkness. Akira Kurosawa is trying to tell us something, probably even beyond the film's story. He is trying to prove a point, to push our subconscious to digest some sort of a subtext, perhaps even to absorb some kind of a secret personal message or a useful lifetime lesson that may mirror or benefit our own ongoing life experiences. Therefore, in order to get a glimpse of Kurosawa's intention behind this extension, an intention he probably took it with him to the grave, let us play a game of observation and speculation, hoping that leads to accurate deduction to understand what the god of humanism and existentialism in cinema is trying to say behind these interesting choices of visual storytelling that hides underneath it many layers of subtext. In easy words, as the Doctor has entered that dark place, we are also entering with him this dark, uncharted dimension underneath what's visible, trying to explore the many layers of subtexts that constructing what will be sensed by the audience's subconscious. We will try to observe this picture from many stages, each time with a different lens. Then we will combine all these results into one picture, a picture that compresses different layers of subtext. So let us restart again, but rather than taking this scene as a game of seduction, I want you to see it this time as a doctor's appointment. The lady is a mentally ill patient, emotionally hurt by her dark, traumatic past. She comes to share with the doctor her experiences, emotions, secrets. She invites him in, permits him to enter her world. The doctor penetrated her chest ribcage, and now he is examining her heart, listening to her problems, trying to be in her shoes, explore deep in her perspective and state of mind, unaware of how attaching, dangerous and dark her whole situation is, especially on him. We have here another layer of subtext that might suggest that her deranged soul realizes that the doctor is genuinely listening to her, wanting to help her, trying to understand the hurt she feels. He may be attracted to her but remains honorable. He isn't the same like the other deprived perverts who tried to fuck her before. Has her game of seduction failed? Or probably this is all a part of the seduction game itself.
人に言うと殺すって言いました。そして明日もおいでって言うんです。私言われた通りにしました。行かなければ殺されると思ったからです。殺される。
On this same layer of subtext, she was shocked. She retreats back to her realm. Her shadow is gone. Notice her shadow disappeared. She feels vulnerable, penetrated, exposed, seen as her true self, as the darkness she is, that darkness where she lives and where she comes from. You need to join her realm to see her in her true self, in her true image. The lady could not bear an intellectual mind examining her inside her dark world, trying to explore her uncharted realm, solving and curing her from the core. She can't bear someone courageous enough to engage on an expedition inside her obscure territory. Now I need you to buckle up for this tricky part. The lady leaves her state of mind behind in her realm and breaks also from the prison, sneaking into the doctor's chair once again. This is a subtext of reflection, of emphasization. It reflects the scene itself. reminding our subconscious mind that this lady, this entity, is a mentally ill patient with dark intention and background, broke from her prison room where she was supposed to be imprisoned in neglect, and walked loose in the free light inside of this hospital. This move also helps Kurosawa craft another layer of subtext. When this entity is liberated, the doctor is imprisoned, and when the doctor is liberated, she is imprisoned. Notice also how she left her shadow back in her dark realm. Kurosawa directed the characters in this way through different depths from the light, permitting only the shadow of the doctor to be visible and clear, while her shadow appears missing, meaning that for the lady's game to be successful around this hospital, especially in front of a sane man, she must leave her disordered personality, represented by her shadow, long behind, imprisoned back in that dark mind of hers, in that dark realm, all while keeping herself in disguise within this hospital until the opportune moment when she will reveal her true disordered personality. Of course, there was no CGI back then to completely remove her shadow, nor there is a necessity to amplify such an alien AI tool to this medium. It is not perfectionism who defines cinema, it actually ruins it. But the true aesthetic glory is the pursuit to craft a visual art, however it turns out to be at the end, and whatever mistakes it may accompany, under the motto aesthetics in mistakes, just on one condition, that the artist should be aware of what he is crafting. Looks like the tire, representing the doctor's dream and fantasy about a better reality, is not just intoxicated by the jar of sake, but it is also a prison, a much tighter one, burdened by chores and duties. The lady is blocked behind the jar, as if she is the jar. She represents what the jar represents. Both the lady and the jar of sake are leading to the same romanticized but very toxic outcome. The doctor is blocked in front of the jar, making it disappear as if he consumed it, as if he is consuming the lady, all while he gets imprisoned again doing so. Do you feel how the lady or even the jar keeps luring him into the traps, into cages, into troublesome, towards darkness and insanity, towards exactly where the lady wants? She takes him from one prison to another. She was able to trap him in her cage and also in the cage of his own making, of his own wishful thinking and dreams. She was able to sneak into his own realm, to his own subconscious. She was able to infiltrate his own state of mind, with all his thoughts, emotions, dreams, yearnings, and the list goes on. She is making him imitate her. When she sits, he sits. When she stands, he stands. She sits again, he sits again. The lady is like a poisonous cobra, hypnotizing her victim, weakening him before she fatally strikes. Once he consumed that bottle of sake, as if the doctor consumed what the lady represents, accepting her lies and acting, he became imprisoned with her in his own tire. The tire that's in a way representing his future, representing his dreams and wishful thinking. At that moment, her shadow appears again, as if Kurosawa mirrors the two tires, making the lady's shadow sneak in to surround the doctor, and tries to tell us that the doctor's tire has become now corrupted, infected and intoxicated enough for the lady's disordered personality to appear within it and to take over it, inhabit it, corrupt it, and darken it. The lady lured the doctor, manipulated him, hypnotized him, cornered him both physically and in the subtext layer, sneaked into his state of mind, inhabited it, and took over it. There exactly when Kurosawa made the first cut, signaling that now it is too late. The cut signals a turn of events. Things were on the mental and emotional level, but once the child representing the doctor's state of mind is corrupted, things now will get physical and pretty unpleasant. The jar of sake becomes shadowed, meaning that the already intoxicated, overinflated, romanticized, dreamy thoughts and views of the future is now poisoned by all the disorders that the lady represents. And notice that from now on, each cut escalates the tension, brings new suspenseful action or emotion to this chain of violent escalation.
私は殺される。今度こそ殺される。私は無我夢中でかんざしを。
And rather than shooting this shot in that dark corner as I suggested earlier in this video, Kurosawa brings it to light, but removes both their shadows. He removes both the characters' shadows. It looks like both of them have teleported into some kind of a bubble. Both their shadows are missing, implementing the idea that the doctor has now entered the lady's realm. He is gone. He is at her mercy. He is as dead as her sanity. Therefore, his shadow also disappears, because he is now kidnapped and captured inside her insanity. It is the same thing as when the lady escaped her chair and roamed the hospital without being accompanied by her own shadow, because she left it in her dark realm. She roams among us without a mind, without reasoning, without sanity.
店の者が入ってきて私の脇に横になり私をこう抱いたの。親ごとのようなことを言いながらこんな風にその時私はこうしたのよ。自分が殺されるくらいなら相手を殺してやる。このかんざしをグッとやった。ちょうどここのどこ。
This kiss is Kurosawa's third manifestation of what really happened in this scene. First, the seduction that hypnotizes the victim. Second, the victim is left vulnerable at her mercy, unaware of her trap. Finally, when the victim finally wakes up, it is too late, and the fight to survive now will cost much more if it is not already lost. Now, this is the final step. We are going to switch the light. For all these complicated layers of subtext to mix with each other and actually make sense, I want you to see this whole thing from a new lens, a wider one. Rather than seeing this place as a hospital, I want you to see it as a psyche, as someone's subconscious. This isn't a hospital. It was just a lonely, desperate man inside his troubled mind all along, imagining and dreaming a better future while doing absolutely nothing to make it a reality, all while being hypnotized, manipulated and haunted by his trauma. The lady is the doctor's own trauma. She did nothing in this scene but complaining about her dark, painful past that she can't forget.
9つの時年寄りの番頭に11の時です。同じようなことされたんです。土蔵の中で手代の一人に17の時です。初めて店の者が私の寝前忍んできた時
She keeps bringing it up over and over again, in the meantime being so afraid that she will be surely killed when the doctor collects enough courage and grit to enter inside her dark realm, actually inside himself, and try to explore, understand, and cure her. The trauma doesn't want to be cured, doesn't want to die. She lives in this darkness. She is addicted to this pain and to complain, all while assuring to remain lost and romanticizing being a victim. Her shadow consumes the jar as she brings the past into the future, bringing complaints and old unsolved troubles to overshadow and manipulate hope, wishes, and dreams, to poison the road to the future, so the future of her victim itself will look and feel exactly like the old problems, making her victim imprisoned of this cycle, repeating the same mistakes over and over again, as the past keep corrupting the future. She feels so relieved when the victim doesn't question her, in contrast to when she is being confronted and examined. So this is a war happening in the present between the past and the future, taking place inside a poor, egoistic, disordered man's mind. This lady is the embodiment of trauma, sneaking from the dark, forgotten past to manipulate the bright, uncertain future, all while troubling and hypnotizing the present. To Kurosawa, it was a very troubled era for him at the time when the movie was being made. Redbeard was a breaking point, an end of an era for black and white Kurosawa. Maybe in a personal level, this doctor himself was Kurosawa, and this lady was Japanese cinema. That pure but fucked up virgin young lady that needs saving. And he was enchanted, hypnotized. She took away his mind, his time, his energy, and even his soul. Kurosawa chased ambition and perfectionism in order to save this beautiful entity, rediscover it, and renew it. But all that leads to a painful ending: depression, stress, fights with production companies and film stars that just yesterday were friends and partners. However, not to sink too much into the personal level, let us come back to the theme of the film that explores human existentialism, and seal this video essay with this clear message. Untreated, unexplored trauma will cage you in the past, leave you unsettled in your present, and it will consume your future. What was bothering you yesterday, if left untreated, it will kill you tomorrow. If you dig yourself under those fancy, unrealistic dreams for some time, soon you won't be able to get up from that grave. And to every man still listening, nothing in this life will ruin you more than an integrated anima. You can Google this. The only thing that it can save you is wisdom that comes from experience, observation, grit, patience, constructive self-criticism, building oneself, being gentle with oneself's immaturity, and other things that psychotherapists may suggest. كان معكم سيف السينما ودرعها، أفكلما ظهر بينكم من ينجدها استخففتم، فريقا حقرتم وفريقا تستهزئون. نصر للسينما المغربية لا محالة آت، فانتظروه، وفرج وشيك.